every family, every village, every group, every community had a spiritual leader. And what that spiritual leader said, you follow. You don't think about it. You don't have the right to contest, question values. Now, the Bab comes into that setting and disrupts that whole thinking. It begins to write commentaries, books, etc., and challenges the fact that in this 400-500 years prior to his emergence or his appearance, religion had been completely corrupted by religious hierarchy, the so-called religious leaders. And therefore, his challenge to the authority of religious leaders got to the point that he actually declared that from now on, there is no such a thing as religious leader. Every human being is created to think for himself and herself. You cannot and should not follow anybody. You should follow your own truth, searching for yourself, questioning everything, including his own teachings.
Welcome to Strange Mysterious World Season 4. Tonight's guest, Iraj Abedian. He is a Baha'i from the Baha'i faith. It's quite interesting. It's an offshoot from Islam. Originates actually from Baha'iism, which was back in 1844. But obviously we're going to let Iraj explain all of that kind of stuff now. I don't want to go and tell you what he's going to tell you anyway. So let's bring him on.
There he is.
Salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Iraj?
Hi, how are you?
How's it, Iraj? Sorry to keep you waiting, man.
You were struggling to get your own room.
Yeah. But it's all good. Yeah, thank you, man, for waiting. For waiting.
No problem.
All right, so Iraj, sorry, man. I'd just like to... So I see you're in South Africa. So how big is, okay, before we get into the whole, how it originated and all the story, how big is the Baha'i faith in South Africa?
At the moment, it's in the region of 20,000 to 25,000. The numbers are obviously dated, and I don't have the latest. The latest statistics was around between 20,000 to 25,000, and they are from north to south in major centers and cities and villages, primarily, obviously, African population.
Okay. And now how did it all begin? Because we know, I know it kind of, it originated from Baha'iism, which was back in the 1840s, which was an offshoot from the Sharia, from Sharia Islam. So explain to us how that kind of came about. What was the story?
Look, the Baha'i faith, very much like all other major religions of God, whether Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, all of them was established by a prophet or a messenger of God, as the Baha'is call it, a manifestation of God that proclaimed that this is a new era, a new age for the birth of a new dispensation or a new world order. So it began, as you alluded to, in 1844, in the middle of the 19th century, by the Bab, that was the forerunner to the founder of the Baha'i faith, who was Baha'u'llah, meaning the glory of God. Okay. So that's how far back it goes. And of course, from 1844 until now, it has become a worldwide religious and spiritual movement in over 200 territories and countries, covering all kinds of human beings, from nationality to regions to races to linguistics and every other religious and belief systems. So today is, in terms of global statistics that are available, the Baha'i faith is the second most widespread religious belief or religious community after Christianity.
Okay, yeah, because I think there's about, when last I saw, I think there was between 8 and 9 million people currently in the world that have shifted across, and of kind of what I know a little bit about it. Look, I haven't gone heavily in depth into it, but I do know a little bit about it, and I know with the Bobbyism, the Bobby, he originally thought that he was a messenger, and that the following him would be the Mahdi, the coming of the coming of the Christ, or the new Messiah, as it would be.
Correct.
So
correct. The Bob obviously was himself a little bit, and if you're looking at historic analogy, it would be John the Baptist preceding the coming of Christ. So he was the forerunner. The difference in this case is the Bob himself was a messenger of God with a specific mission, closing a particular religious era, a religious cycle, if you like, that had begun from the Adam, that as we know it in the biblical terms. The Bob was the last of that particular cycle of messengers or manifestations of God, and he foretold that soon God will manifest the founder of the new dispensation and the new cycle of fulfillment. So the Bob was the last of the prophetic cycle. Before him had come and reported 124,000 prophets before him, and he was the last of that cycle, and Baha'u'llah, the founder of the new cycle, the cycle of fulfillment, the cycle of maturation of humanity, and the birth of a new dispensation, a new world order.
Okay. And so what I quite enjoy is every cycle is a 7,000 year cycle. And I mean, if you work it out, then we've had 24,000 prophets. I mean, the world is very, very old. Okay, so I mean, it's not like if you look at the normal the Islamic traditions or the Abrahamic traditions, it's not. Everybody says it originated around about 5,000 BC, but that's like nowhere near. I mean, we all know Atlantis. We know all these things that have happened prior, 250, 300, 400, a million years ago. So I actually enjoy that the fact that every cycle is a 7,000 year cycle, which is actually pretty cool, and that actually follows suit with the William.
The Kali
Yuga cycles. It's like every 7,000 years there's a Kali Yuga cycle of change, which is actually pretty cool. So that works actually very nicely hand in hand with that. So with the Barbie, obviously he brought forth. Look, I know he went through some horrific. I think he was eventually executed, but he kind of brought through or he headed up the new religion, exactly as you said. It was the same with John the Baptist, and then in came the new incarnation. So look, I worry a little bit because with the new, and I suppose this is going to be in the 7,000 year cycle, where we're all supposed to be following kind of one religion. We're all supposed to be having the same sort of language, universal language that we're all going to be talking. I'm assuming that's right. It's going to happen in the next 7. It's not like within the next 100 years or so.
Yeah, I think the nuances is that Baha'u'llah says it's not talking about the 7,000, right? It's 7,000 years.
Yeah.
It's talking about a different cycle, and makes it very clear that there is no end in this process of what he describes as the progressive revelation, meaning the communication between God and human beings through his messengers or her messengers, through the messengers of God, comes through a frequency of around 1,000 years. Sometimes it's 750 and sometimes it's 800, 900. Every 1,000 years, the evolution of human consciousness, human socioeconomic life on the planet, changes that happens in the world order requires a renewal. And that 1,000 years is what Baha'u'llah promises for this dispensation, for his set of rules and regulations and teachings to last. After 1,000 years, a new manifestation will come, will maintain the core values of religion as we've had it all along. Manifestations of God don't come to change everything. They renew the moral, spiritual principles, and yet they bring a revival, a revision, and sometimes new teachings that suitable for the socioeconomic environment in which humanity has evolved into. A good example of it, William, is looking at what we all experience. We go to school every year, the system evolves. A new teacher comes, a new set of textbooks, a new set of principles we learn. As it expands our capacity to absorb, as we grow, not as they grow, not as the teacher grows, but as the students grow, their ability to absorb more sophisticated science, more sophisticated concept, more sophisticated philosophical notions, then the new teacher comes and we keep growing and we go to high school and we go to universities, post-universities, never stops. So very similar to that, Baha'u'llah says there is no end to this evolution of human learning and human consciousness, human philosophical growth, and its relationship or humanity's relationship with the Creator. So in the Baha'i dispensation, in terms of the holy text, the cycle that we have entered is a grand cycle. It's not 7,000 or 10,000. It's 500,000 years of evolution ahead of us. Every 1,000 years or so, there will be a renewal. There will be an upgrade, if you like, as our system grows. To just illustrate the reality that since 1844, if we just look at our own experience, we can see the number of scientific innovation, inventions, the integration of the globe on communication, on transportation. What we are doing online, you and I, now we see that it was unthinkable 100 years ago. It was unimaginable even in the wildest dreams of forefathers 1,000 years ago. So imagine this pace 1,000 years from now or 500 years from now, what they will have to grapple with, the challenges that they will have intellectually, socially, morally, environmentally, in every other way, would be as great as our challenges in comparison with our forefathers. And Baha'u'llah therefore says this scientific evolution and the spiritual evolutions are the two means of exploring reality, the two wings of human progress, and they need to be, in a way, hand in hand, in sync. And as this growth happens every 1,000 years, there will be a new messenger of God or manifestation of God in order to help the progress of humankind in sync with scientific and socioeconomic progress.
Okay. So I must just correct myself. Sorry, well, let me answer that, but I just want to correct myself earlier. I said Sharia, it's actually Shia. Shia Islam.
Shia,
so okay, let's go back. Let's go right back to before the Bab, before Babi came around, before Bab came, and Babiism started. He was, I'm assuming, he was Muslim.
Yeah.
He was now delving into the esoteric side of Islam. They were delving more into, it's not just like your everyday,
like Sufism.
Yeah, that's actually that is one of the derivatives there. But so they were delving into the esoteric side of that. So what made them change? What was because I know with regards to Islam, the Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad was supposed to be the last prophet, and thereafter it was going to be all messengers going forward. There was going to be no longer prophets. So what happened to change that for the Bab?
William, with respect, it wasn't so much esoteric as it was mysticism. All religions have mystics who really want to go to the core spiritual dimensions of all religions. We've had it in Judaism, we have it in Christianity, we have it in Buddhism. So there's nothing new. What was happening at that time, which was the darkest days of the Islamic world in Iran, where the Bab manifested himself or emerged. It was a time that religion of Islam had been almost overwhelmed by fictitious ideas, man-made procedures and do's and don'ts. And what had been forgotten by that time. And remember, this process didn't start in 1844. It had begun 400 or 500 years prior to that. Rumi, which in the West is quite known, about 600 years prior to the manifestation of the Bab, had already raised, and not just Rumi alone, his whole mystic schools of understanding Islam had rebelled against institutionalized Islamic society, community, the practices that were prevailing at that time in Iran, in Turkey, in Afghanistan, and all around. They were rebelling against this kind of institutionalized religion that had almost overtaken the principles of religion, the religion itself, by that time in the Islamic religions, or core principles of humanity. So Rumi and his cohort, before him, a very famous mystic called Attar, and many others, poets, philosophers, and mystics, had expressed, written volumes, scientists who had also, from a scientific point of view, challenged for 500-600 years prior to the Bab the fact that there was a need for a new set of values. Islam was not being seen or practiced the way it should be. Instead, fictitious views, man-made practices, and a whole lot of social control over the mind and heart of people had taken over. Therefore, fanaticism, ignorance, to the point that, for example, if we be very specific to how bad it had got, at the time of the Bab, going to school was frowned upon. People were not encouraged to educate themselves, and women were no go. Even men were not allowed to, and all of that was confined to a set of what is called madrasas or schools of institutionalized religion. Now you might just say that was 1840s or prior to that. But even now in Nigeria, we have a similar things. Therefore, if you go back 200 years ago, you can imagine how dark and how fanatic and how sort of pre-Middle Age era of thinking had prevailed. As a result, the society was very controlled, very closed, not at all open to finding truth. You have to have somebody, a religious leader that you follow. And it was a family affair. Every family, every village, every group, every community had a spiritual leader. And what that spiritual leader said, you follow. You don't think about it. You don't have the right to contest, question values. Now, the Bab comes into that setting and disrupts that whole thinking. It begins to write commentaries, books, etc., and challenges the fact that in this 400 or 500 years prior to his emergence or his appearance, religion had been completely corrupted by religious hierarchy, the so-called religious leaders. And therefore, his challenge to the authority of religious leaders got to the point that he actually declared that from now on, there is no such a thing as religious leader. Every human being is created to think for himself and herself you cannot and should not follow anybody. You should follow your own truth, searching for yourself, questioning everything, including his own teachings. He was promoting questions, and he was, to the best of my knowledge, according to the written history, William, he is the only messenger of God or manifestation of God who continuously wrote, continuously responded to queries, encouraged his followers to raise questions, even question him. And day and night he wrote thousands and thousands of missives and letters and books and so on and so forth, all of which are now obviously compiled and available. But within 6 years, he revealed many, many times that of the Bible and the Torah and the Quran and so on. And very seldom, if ever, he addressed his followers. He communicated with his followers through written communication, encouraged them to search the truth for themselves. You cannot be whoever you are because your father was that or your grandfather was that. You got to be who you are because you have found the truth for yourself. Search for truth was the cornerstone of the Bab's spiritual revolution.
Okay, so did you want to ask something, Will?
No. You ask again.
Yeah. So I want to kind of get back a little bit to kind of what you're saying, because look, for me, it makes a lot of sense. I know the Islamic traditions pretty well. My problem, and this has always been a problem that I've had with the Islamic tradition, is the Prophet Muhammad came along. He did not choose a successor. Okay, there was a reason. There was no successor chosen. Some of the followers chose the follower Umar, and some of the guys chose Ali. Now that was chosen by the people. That was not supposed to be the case. It was very specific that the Prophet Muhammad said the person that would be the next in charge would be chosen by God. So this is kind of where I think everything's gone wrong, because we all of a sudden have Sunni, then you have the Shia, and then it's the guys are fighting amongst each other because it was never supposed to be like that. So I think it's correct in what you're saying. I think the Baha'i had the right idea, and when God creates people, He never ever creates people to put somebody under somebody else. He creates them of equal capacity, yes, the men might be stronger than women, but they've got their own strengths. We've got our own strengths. So there's always, and it's a balance. It's the yin and yang. It's the have to be. So I think this is where they got it wrong, especially in the beginning, because it's like, equality. And I know that's one of your principles. It's equality of men and women, and the belief in one God, and anti-racism, which I think is actually fantastic. So I think, in a whole, it's actually pretty cool. I think it's actually quite a nice.
I think, William, the three core, if you like, foundational principles of the Baha'i faith are around very important and increasingly more important for the day, for the society that we live in, wherever on the planet we are these three onenesses, or the three principles. One is that there is one God. And therefore, however we relate to that creator, it's only one God. So oneness of God is a very critical one of the three principles. The second one is oneness of humanity, that we may be different, we may look different, talk different from appearance and from our mindset, from the way we approach things. That's millions of diversity, these days billions of diversity, does not take away from the fact that we are all one human race, all endowed with one soul, and are capable of reflecting, creating, finding truth. And that oneness is central to Baha'i faith. And the second and the third one is the fact all religions are one. There is no Islam against Christianity, Buddhist against Judaism, and all of that. Because if there is one God, from that one powerful source, which is unknowable, and yet in one way or another, we as human beings, either intuitively or whatever ways, we relate to the existence of a power beyond our comprehension and as a source of creation. So those three onenesses cuts across a lot of prejudices, a lot of misconceptions, a lot of warmongering, a lot of pain and suffering that humanity has suffered and continues to suffer. So those three forms the foundation upon which the Baha'i faith builds and aspires and aims and works towards building a new world order. In that, then you can unpack it if you like. If religions are one religious prejudice, we need to rethink it. We need to recast the whole question so that we can get the right answer for it. Why are there differences? Because these religions were brought in at a different time that humanity was evolving. Certain things that were absolutely the right prescription for the time that Abraham came or the time that Moses came no longer applies to the time that Christ comes. And what Christ brings in, fantastic for that time, doesn't apply to the time that Muhammad comes. And what was good for the time of Muhammad is not good for our time. Therefore, the truth and the reality becomes relative to the socioeconomic evolutionary state of human beings, us. So if religions are one, then religious prejudice and a whole lot of subsidiary prejudice forms are lethal, and we need to find ways of overcoming them. If humanity is one, then a lot of what we have learned and been socialized to accept as us and them suddenly evaporates, suddenly becomes very superficial, very lacking of substance, irrelevant. Important as they may have been at a particular point in time, they are no longer conducive to the happiness and welfare of our species as Homo sapiens on the planet. So Baha'u'llah says the oneness of humanity then means equality of rights of men and women. Yes, maybe we're different. We have different biological and other functions to do, and yet we have capabilities that one wing has and the other doesn't. And says human society is like a bird, two wings. One wing is a man, one wing is a woman. And this bird can only be flying high, soaring in the heavens of progress and social welfare and happiness, only and only when these two wings are in balance. They operate in sync. They are respected as equal wings necessary for the soaring of the human civilization. Likewise, in other areas, if we look at the oneness of God also means that the creation of God, which is everything around us, which includes science, which includes the discovery of the laws of existence, which we call it science, should be in sync with our reality, which is the spiritual reality. So the coherence and the harmony of science and religion becomes another very important teachings. And likewise, if you believe that humanity is one, as Baha'u'llah says, Baha'u'llah, in fact, uses a beautiful sentence, which is very inspiring, which says, the earth is but one country, mankind is citizens. So if we are born from the time that we are being socialized, if we are educated to see the whole planet Earth as one country, mankind is citizens, actually our heart and our mind goes to a different space. We see the diversity of human beings as a fantastic, inspiring source of welfare, progress, and joy, much like a wonderful garden full of different flowers that may look very different, but they are collectively within the same garden, I'm using an example, becomes a very joyful coexistence of different flowers, different scents, and different colors, and different shapes, and different appearances. All of that suddenly becomes a different universe to think about. All of that eliminates the root causes of prejudice, the root causes of tension, the root causes of otherness, which today in the on the global stage has become a really massive source of pain, suffering, killing, and. So I think Baha'u'llah brings a set of philosophical, perceptional insights to this stage of humanity that, interestingly enough, is fit for the time that we live in, because the scientific capabilities, technologies that are around us and increasing almost daily, makes it possible to give expression to these teachings. For example, a mere 20 years ago, I couldn't sit here and talk to somebody like in Mexico and Japan and Hawaii and Saudi Arabia and see that we have so much in common. We may have differences, but when we scratch the surface and put it aside on so many substantive issues, we actually are very similar. For example, no matter which human being you choose from which corner of the globe, they would want to have peace. They want to have happiness. They want to have a safe environment. They want to have their families to be protected. They want to have their children to be educated. They want themselves to have an opportunity for progressing themselves. They don't want to be suppressed. They don't want to be hurt. And so as soon as we put these superficial barriers of, I'm from Mexico, you are from South Africa, somebody is from Nigeria, and somebody from Japan, we go to the substance, and technology has now enabled it, that we see, wow, we are not that different. Differences are not something to be scared of. Differences are not something to be worried. Rather, even differences can be a source of education. If I walk into a country for the first time, into a community for the first time, and I see they are so different, it immediately encourages me to think, wow, what do they know? What can I learn from them? Maybe there are things that I've never in my life come across. And that's a wonderful thing to learn from. And that, again, instead of becoming a source of fear, mistrust, anxiety, it becomes a source of inspiration. And in my own personal life, I can really, without fear of contradiction, say, ever since I became a member of the Baha'i faith, I've ever since then, wherever I go to, wherever you drop me, I have the same excitement. Wow, these are new people. They look different. They talk different. They think different. And I have a lot to learn from them. And that is a very important experience for me, and which I think worldwide, more and more technology has enabled us to connect. Connectivity breaks the barriers. And when the barriers are replaced by a means of getting to know each other, we see that humanity is one despite their differences.
Okay, so Iraj, William and I, we've been doing this podcast for just almost 2 years now. And we've spoken to just many different religions, many backgrounds. And, you know, I have noticed the very common thread between them all. But there was something I've never heard this section in the Baha'i faith. I know that they accept, it doesn't matter, you could be Buddhist, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But what about what about the natural gifts that God has given us that we've kind of forgotten? So I'm talking about things like telepathy, clairvoyance, remote viewing, you know, all this kind of thing. Because the people that we talk to, we've tried it ourselves, we know it works. And I know if you talk about this stuff in the traditional Islamic or even in the Christian side of stuff, it's a big no-no. They're like,
no, but it's funny,
that's the devil.
In the Christian faith, yes, it says in the Bible, if you're a medium or whatever, you must be killed. But then it's funny because in the Christians, when they have these visions or whatever themselves, or like have any psychic phenomena happen, and they say it's the Holy Spirit they put it on the Holy Spirit. So it's okay if it's the Holy Spirit, but if it's, but if you don't call it the Holy Spirit, then in the old days you'd probably get killed. But so I've also found it very interesting how it's okay if you say it's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now in the Baha'i writings, interesting now that issue is addressed in a couple of places, and to the best of my understanding, it goes along the following lines: that as human beings, we all have different capabilities. Somebody may be a fantastic sports person, or fantastic singer or musician, and so on and so forth. Those attributes can also extend to our spiritual, psychopathic, psychometric dimensions. That yes, some individuals may have capability to foresee things. They have beyond average. We have all sort of a median line, and we have deviation from it. And without a doubt, there are a couple of places that I have read which makes it specifically clear that people do have some people do have these capabilities, and there's nothing inhuman about it. We should respect them as having those capabilities, and they should accept themselves and put it into good use. So it is not frowned upon, nor is it rejected, nor is it seen as satanic or evil or anything of the type. It's seen that like another human beings. When Mozart suddenly out of the air pulls out the whole composition, I look at it and say, wow, how the hell did he get it? But that's his capability. And when a sports person does other manifest different capabilities or talents, we should admire. And there are, yes, individuals who have those type of talents. That is not inconsistent with the nature of a human being. The attributes of human soul is infinite. The attributes of physical body is limited. And Baha'u'llah and the Baha'i writings repeatedly reminds us that us as human beings have really a twin existence. We have a physical existence, which is visible and is pretty much common amongst all of us. And each one of us also has got an invisible being associated, or in the language of today's electronic age or digital age, is paired with our physical body. Our spiritual being and our physical body are paired. And these pairing is what makes us human beings. And from our spiritual being, the more refined we become, the more we mature and take care of our spiritual progress and the spiritual being, different manifestations of that spiritual soul manifests itself in all spheres of life, be it in artistic, scientific, as well as, if you like, psychic capabilities. And some of us will have different capabilities in our soul existence than others, and yet they are all part and parcel of being human being. And that's what distinguishes us within the realm of creation. Of all things that have been created, human beings is the apex. And that requires a whole host of infinite capabilities of our human soul. That's how I understand those cases need to be accepted and respected.
Okay, and then the last question from our side, Iraj, did the Bab or Baha'u'llah, did they ever receive divine kind of guidance? Because I know if you go back into the prophethood, it was always the angel Gabriel, who was generally the messenger that was what would bring the messages across. Did they receive the same kind of divine guidance from
yes,
the higher?
That's a very important point, and absolutely yes. And they acknowledge it themselves, and Baha'u'llah, in fact, to the best of my knowledge, and remember, I'm not a religious historian or expert, but to the best of my research, Baha'u'llah is the first one that puts it in writing how it happened when he was in a dungeon prison, being arrested for being a follower of the Bab. When he was put in that prison, he says, one night I had this feeling, and he makes the analogy of being in an environment that just, when the pre-rain, the drops and the moistures drop on you, that you say, wow, the rain is coming. It says, I had a feeling of something encircling me, and explains that whole experience of how he felt, and how he, through that process, when he emerged, he knew that he had a different mission in life. Having said that, there is also a great deal of what in the Baha'i scriptures refers to as tablets or holy writing, giving us insight. And in those set of holy writings, Baha'u'llah explains that manifestations of God, such as Moses, Christ, Muhammad, Buddha, Hindu, the Bab, Baha'u'llah, they are a different kind of soul. They are souls that are capable of receiving communication from the unknown God. So yes, we are all human beings, and they look like human beings. Christ looked like human being, and if you did anything to him, he would feel the pain of any other human being. And yet his soul was a special category of soul, which is capable of receiving those emanations, those holy communications, if you like, from the Holy Spirit, as in the holy books is often referred to as the Holy Spirit. So Baha'u'llah makes it quite clear that all the messengers of God, all the manifestations of God, prophets of God, they look like human beings, yet their soul is of a particular category that has those inherent capabilities.
Oh. So, Iraj, how do you practice this religion? I mean, is there like a church? Do you have a book? Do you
there's plenty
say
of
prayers?
You must actually see the churches, dude. They are so nice. Like really nice.
The Baha'i community does not have religious leader, doesn't have church, doesn't have place of worship, is everywhere. From the moment that you wake up to the moment that you go to sleep is an opportunity for worship, for being in communion with your Creator. We don't have religious leaders, we don't have churches per se, but we do have, when the community is big enough, there is a Baha'i center in every city, in Cape Town, in Johannesburg, in every on the continent. Then there are Baha'i temples. These Baha'i temples, again, requires a different session on its own, but these are built on each continent as a gift to humanity, open to everybody, not to the Baha'is. It's a symbolic presence, gift to humanity to illustrate the oneness of humankind, that although the Baha'is build it and the Baha'is take care of it, but it's open to all human beings. How do we practice it? There are spiritual side that are unique because there is no religious leader. You got to read for yourself. Yes, we can come together and discuss it, but no one's view is superior to the other. It's a means of exchanging ideas, if you like, extracting insights, the insights that you can get very different from mine, but I learn from you, and hopefully you learn from me, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of emphasis on consultation, on exchange of views, in order to practice the religion, not in fanatic way, but in a constructive and dynamic way. So the Baha'is, as I mentioned earlier, they don't inherit their religion. At the age of 15, their parents should in a way train them and socialize them to search for the truth. And whatever they choose, it's respected. If my child wakes up one day and says, look, I now want to be a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Christian or a Hindu, I respect him or her as much as if he said, I'm a Baha'i. But what we do encourage is to expose them, educate them on all religions. And they must choose for themselves and live with it, not because they inherited it, because they chose it. And it's their religion, not their parents' religion. And yes, there are gatherings in every community. There are meetings to make sure that the communal aspects of the community are taken care of, such as the birth and the death and things that are part of reality of every community. And there's encouragement of service as a center of Baha'i life. service to yourself, to take care of your soul and your well-being, service to your family, as a service to your community, and service to humanity. So the practice of the Baha'i faith is illustrated or is lived through service. And if you want to serve, you need to have a twin purpose. Keep educating yourself to the best of your ability, whatever your circumstances are. At the same time, live it. If you fail, get up and do it again and try again, and don't judge others and judge yourself. Bring yourself to account and never focus on other people's do's and don'ts and wrongs and failures. Rather, focus on yourself, and that's the way you practice the Baha'i teachings. Baha'i teachings is not a set of belief in theory. It's a set of prescription for living that each one of us goes through it, and each one of us becomes our own judge of daily refinement and progress, and that's how it's practiced.
So then, how did the Bab spread it? Like, how did it get so big so quick? I mean, yeah,
so quickly. Yeah, through his writings. I mean, the volumes that he's written in 6 years whilst being in prison day and night, and the first 20, 30,000 who believed in him were all highly educated Muslim leaders, if you like, mullahs and ayatollahs, and really learned, who were absolutely inspired and put on fire, so to speak, by his revolutionary concepts. And then they established in their cities and villages and so on. Now, despite the fact that the government and the religious establishment at that time was literally arresting them, imprisoning them, and killing them in public to make example for the others, the more they increased the level of brutality against his followers, the more it attracted the attention of the society, and it grew like wildfire. That's why they had to execute him. And they thought if they execute him, the whole thing will die. And far from it, it has spread. Baha'u'llah was then banished from Iran to Iraq, from Iraq to Istanbul, Turkey, Ottoman Empire, then to what was then Palestine. And the more they ramped up so-called opposition against them, the more they helped to spread the message and attracted people who were waiting for this kind of philosophical, religious, spiritual revival.
Wow, so he kind of like was Jesus in a way, that he had to like
Absolutely.
get crucified, or not crucified, but killed to spread the message. Wow.
That is the way of God. It always uses a downtrodden like Christ or Moses and so on. And the more the establishment at that time, be it religious establishment or secular establishment, the more they oppose them, the more they help them to spread, simply because the time is ready. Humanity is ready for a new message, a new perspective, a new spiritual revival.
So like nowadays, because I don't think anybody that comes up with a big idea or like spiritual thing, I mean, they're not going to get, well, I hope they're not going to get killed. Well, you know, if they live in America or any other Western place, they're not going to get killed. They'll just get kicked off Twitter or taken off YouTube. I mean, that's probably the worst they could get.
But we don't know. We don't know. Maybe 1,000 years from now, when the new manifestation of God comes, or 900 years from now, we don't know what the environment will be. I agree with you that they won't get killed. But how they will influence or configure the instruments of oppression and suppression, I cannot imagine. But that they will do, there is no doubt about it. That they will not be killed, I can relate, because humanity will have evolved to a point of engaging with these differences or this brilliant infusion of new spiritual revolution in a different way. They'll have an easier time. It won't be as bad as Christ or what Muhammad had or what Moses had, but humanity will have its own challenges.
But yeah, but I always think about like the coming of like the next Messiah or Jesus or whatever that comes. I mean, how does he attract so many followers? Because I mean, there's a lot of interesting people that have a lot of interesting theories about God and spirituality and everything, but it doesn't really like just hit home for everyone. You know, it doesn't take like, it doesn't become a Baha'i religion or Christian movement, or it's just it only attracts like a certain thousand amount of people. Maybe like even of a million if you like lucky, but like well, I suppose science and stuff. Science is probably like the new religion, but yeah, I just wonder what this person's going to come and start preaching, that like it's going to like millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people are going to follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing is this. In fact, there is a few pieces that, as you were talking, reminds me of how these things do happen, and not in a futuristic way, but as a matter of principle. And that is the difference between a very charismatic, very creative human being is that for as long as he or she is alive, his circle of followers survive. Whereas the beauty or the fantastic, impressive part of messengers of God is that they in fact expand after they've gone. Now, Christ in his own few years, 3 years or so, didn't really make much progress. But when he was crucified, 500 years later, 300 years later, 1,000 years later, suddenly every city you go, there is an edifice in the name of Christ. There is street names, and there are poets and musicians and composers and dancers and everybody in the name of Christianity. And that's what distinguishes a manifestation of God from a very creative, charismatic human beings. Human beings are influential to the extent that they themselves live, be it Hitler or be it Mussolini or be it whoever. But the minute that they disappear, the followers fizzle out. Manifestations of God, they have a dispensation of 500, 600, 1,000 years. And during that time, their message, their influence touches the heart of human beings and it expands. So I have absolutely no doubt that in the future, whatever the modalities might be, the principle will stay. They will be distinguished from their contemporaries who had very, very clever ideas. And by the way, when Baha'u'llah came, it was the apex of Marxism. It was the apex of communism and socialism and the spiritualism. All of them were in a way heralding the need for a change. What distinguished Baha'u'llah from those? Those came, they had fantastic influence. They even helped shape governments, and those governments collapsed and failed. And message of Baha'u'llah continues in over 200 territories and keeps growing. That's the difference.
Yeah, sure. So nowadays, yeah, if you get a big following, it's like they just call you a cult.
Yeah,
like
But like
it
you
always
said, it
becomes about money.
fizzles out quickly.
Yeah.
money, power, and progress. Yeah, but messengers of God influence very differently.
So now, Iraj, how do people, I'm in Durban. So how do people kind of, if they want to, if you guys are both in Cape Town, someone's in Joburg, how do they find one of these temples, or how do they get?
Very easy. Wherever you are, if you want information, you go Baha'i.org. You have the whole library there in many languages. If you're in Durban or anywhere else, there is a Baha'i community that you can connect with them and join their meetings or meet up with them, see when their meetings, participate in their discussions. And as I mentioned, there is nobody who can convert you. There is no proselytization is forbidden in the Baha'i faith. Search for truth is encouraged. Proselytization is forbidden. So as a Baha'i, I will, to the best of my ability, share with you what I know. Whether you accept it or reject it or how lukewarm about it I'm equally respectful of what you decide. So if you're in Durban, there is a Baha'i community in Durban. If you want to attend their meetings, gatherings, or get books or get information, you'll have no problem connecting with some.
But Iraj, I came to Lee. I went to the one meeting at Iraj's house, and it was amazing. I mean, we didn't speak about the Baha'i religion. There was some other topic, and you gave such a wonderful speech, or I don't know what you would call it, like a
I shared our views. I shared my views on it. Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to call it a lecture, but it was this wonderful. We all sat there. It was lovely people there, and then your wife made this beautiful meal afterwards. It was incredible. So yeah, it's great company. Very philosophical. It was. We all spoke about it afterwards. It was really cool, and I was looking forward to it. I was actually wanted to come to the one on Friday again, but then I went to Berrydale, and I only got back on Sunday. So yeah,
William, you missed the beautiful one. We had 32 people from South Korea, from Colombia, South Africa, 3-4 different cities. It was a surprise for me because people had invited friends, and we had a wonderful time. And that's how it's supposed to be. It should be an inspiring, meaningful conversation that people go home and say, "Oh, that idea that I never heard." Not from a Baha'i, it can be from another Baha'i. It doesn't matter. Human beings are the source of meaningful conversation, not religious views. But the Baha'is see themselves as the agent of facilitating that, hosting that, but not with a view to convert anybody.
It was a very enjoyable evening.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Nice way to end it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. Iraj, much appreciated.
Thank you,
time, man.
Yeah, thank you, Raj.
Absolute pleasure, and this I really appreciate. And hopefully, if you're in Cape Town, we can have an in-person chat and host
come to dinner.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
Food was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, Raj. I won't see. I was hoping to come again, but I'm going away for 3 weeks now on a job. So
yeah,
I'll get back.
When you're back, every last Friday of the month, we host it. So feel at home.
Is it every last Friday? I thought it was every Friday.
Every last Friday of each month. It's been going on for 40 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Raj.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Great. Travel safely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cool, man. It was like
okay.
So yeah, I must come for dinner. I must make sure when I come across next time, it must be the last Friday, the last thing you have there.
I think it was such good food, eh? Like, I mean, if you guys don't want to come just for the talk, just come for the food.
As long as it's vegan, because I can't have meat and stuff.
No, it was actually a vegetarian soup that I had.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Lovely bread and yeah.
Awesome, man.
But yeah, cool, man.
That was about thanks everybody. Yeah, something different again, which is actually always pretty cool. The strange, mysterious world that we live in. There's a lot of different things that we have to still cover. But like and subscribe, everybody, and we'll chat to you next week. Cheers, Will.
Okay. Cheers, guys. Cheers,